Hi, I'm Chris Baer. I write the column This Was Then for the Martha's Vineyard Times. This week's article is about St. Croix Oliver, a storekeeper in Vineyard Haven. And I want to thank the Martha's Vineyard Museum for inviting me to say a few words about the article. So let me switch to the photograph. This is actually one of my favorite photographs in my collection. It is about 1900. This is on the corner of Union and Water Street in Vineyard Haven, right around where the ticket office is at the Steamship Authority. Let me zoom in on this guy right here. We know a little bit about who these people are. This is Isaac Chase right here with a pipe. Next to him is Frank Gallart Sr., who is an immigrant from the Azores, I think. Owen Tilton, who was a lumberman. He's a lumberyard. Tilton's lumberyard was right across the street. This is actually, we don't know these four guys right here. This guy looks like he had his mustache penciled in on the print. But this is E. St. Croix Oliver right here. This was the storekeeper. He ran the store here from 1882 until 1907 when he retired. And then just to finish off, this is Ernest West. He's actually my grandfather's uncle. He left the island about 1900 to go out to California. This must have been right before he left. And this is Captain Willis Howes here and Frank Tilton on the end. But this guy right here in the middle. This is E. St. Croix Oliver. He was a retired captain himself. And this is the storefront, the Union Street entrance to that. Here's an advertisement for his shop. He was a ship chandler, a grocer, sold all sorts of things, a lot of paints and clothing and stuff for ships. But he also sold, patent medicines and charts, and he was an official sales representative for the United States government for selling maps and charts. Here's an kind of a view from afar. This is on Main Street, up I think on top of Lane's block could be my guess, where Leslie's is. This would be up on the roof when it was a three-story building. Here's Union Wharf, and you can see the Martha's Vineyard, the paddle wheel Martha's Vineyard. The steamer has come in. People must be getting off. We'll talk about this little bump right here in a moment. Here's the fish market. This is East St. Croix Oliver's store right here in the corner. This would be Water Street and Union Street, again, right where the ticket office is in Vineyard Haven. This is the Seamen's Bethel next door. This was moved not too long ago, maybe the 70s, 80s. At least part of it was moved to by the VFW, by the Tisbury School. But then there's another part was moved elsewhere. I can't remember the whole story. This building, this was Tilton's lumberyard office here. You can see the lumber on the ground here. But this building is still there, but they moved it up the street a little bit. So it's a little further up the street. I forget what's there now. I think Fellas was one of the last people there, I think. You can see Hines Point and Oak Bluffs and of course Beach Road. Let's see. Here's a really good shot of it. So here's East St. Croix Oliver's store right here, and Tilton's lumber office. But this was during the 1898 the Portland Gale, they called it, the Gale of 1898, and a terrible gale. A lot of people died. A lot of ships wrecked. But one ship went right through, pushed right through the wharf, and they couldn't get it out for months and months and months. They actually had to build the wharf around the bow of the ship so that they could use the wharf. They finally got it out of there, and they saved the ship. Here's the Bethel. You can see right here, it says E. St. Croix Oliver, agent for the sale of U.S. government charts and publications. I don't know who this is moving around out here. Here it says Water Street. This is a street sign. Notary Public. He was a notary public. And this is Chase and Sanborn Boston Coffee. And it says Perfect Frosting Frostlean. Frostlean was a brand of canned frosting. And then there's a big poster for cigars, Lawrence Cigars. And I don't know what this poster is, but it's kind of fun to see all the details in there. Here's another, this would have been late 1890s, I think. looking up Union Street. This is Main Street up here, but here is East St. Croix Oliver's store again. A lumber yard on the other side. This is Lane's Block, and a lot of these buildings are still there. But Oliver, turns out he was as I said, he was at sea for 30 years. He had run away from home as a kid, went to sea. He was captain of 3 ships. But it was kind of fun to dig up the story of the ship. So the first ship he was on as captain was the Harry Bluff, and it turns out there was loads of articles all over the country because the ship was wrecked off of Nantucket, and 2 of his men froze to death. Another 2 fell in and drowned, and they were floating at sea in an open boat until they were finally rescued. And that was his first captaincy. That was made news all over the country. His second time as captain at sea was on this is Harry Bluff again, on the Garnet. And it turns out it was wrecked also. It was going around Cape Horn off of Chile, headed to San Francisco, and it the ship was wrecked there, and they had to. Fortunately, his crew was saved. And the third captaincy he held was of the Kashmir, and he was arrested at the end of it because he had so brutally treated his crew, and as did his first mate, that his crewmen, when they docked in Boston, brought him up on multiple charges. His first mate was charged with murder. Oliver was charged with standing by and not interfering with the murder, and also for beating and abusing other crewmen too. So that was the end of his time as time at sea. But so he wound up opening up this ship chandlery in Vineyard Haven. Supposedly he sold liquor here, at least that was the rumor. The town band practiced up on the 2nd floor somewhere for a period. It was the only store in Vineyard Haven to survive the Great Fire of 1883, so he was the only store open at that time. And the trolley car from Oak Bluffs, when they built it by the end of the 1890s, it kind of pulled right up at the corner here. So he was the last stop on the trolley that would serve the wharf. He was a notary public, and he actually was legal guardian to 3 children who they lost both their parents to typhoid fever, I think. And so I don't know that he raised them, but he was their legal guardian. His only child was died as a baby, I think. He was born on board. He had a son, Edward Jr., who was born on board but then died. And one of his employees at the end was Sam Kronig, who would later open Kronig's Market, which is interesting. Kronig he was a Lithuanian immigrant, and he would have been a teenager at the time. And then later, of course, he opened Kronig's Market. The store itself was sold, or the business was sold in 1907 to Bodfish and Call, which was an existing grocer, and it soon merged with a couple other groceries to become the Bodfish of SBS, Smith, Bodfish, and Swift. So SBS, one of the companies that made it up. So that's a little inside scoop of this week's article on East St. Croix Oliver, and I hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about it. Thank you very much.